You open a dating app, a face pops up, and before you've read a single word of the bio, you've already decided something. This person seems kind, successful, probably fun to be around. You don't know any of that. You know what they look like, and somehow that felt like enough. The same thing happens in a job interview, in the first 3 seconds before anyone said a word about their actual experience, and in a courtroom, where a jury glances at a defendant's face before hearing a shred of evidence. In every case, a snap judgment about looks quietly writes a story about character. That snap judgment has a name, and it's been running your decisions your whole life. Psychologists call it the halo effect. And the version aimed specifically at attractiveness has an almost embarrassingly honest nickname. What is beautiful is good. The term itself is older than you'd think. In 1920, psychologist Edward Thorndike noticed something strange while studying how army officers rated their soldiers. An officer who rated a soldier as physically impressive also, almost automatically, rated that same soldier as more intelligent, more disciplined, more loyal, traits that had nothing to do with how the soldier looked. One good impression was spreading a halo over everything else about that person. It took until 1972 for psychologists Karen Dion, Ellen Burstiad, and Elaine Walster to test this directly on physical attractiveness. In a study that's become one of the most cited in the field, they showed people photographs pre-rated as attractive, average, or unattractive, and asked them to guess the person's personality, career success, even how happy their future marriage would be based on nothing but the photo. The attractive faces won on almost every trait. Not just better looking, kinder, more competent, more sociable, predicted to live better lives. About total strangers, guessed from a single photograph, this isn't just about a 5-second glance at a stranger either. In a classic experiment, psychologists David Landy and Harold Segal gave college students the exact same essay to grade identical words. Identical argument, but each copy had a photo clipped to the top, supposedly of the student who wrote it. Essays attached to an attractive photo were graded better than the identical essay attached to a less attractive one. And the gap wasn't even across the board, it opened widest when the essay itself was weak, as if a good-looking face was worth the most exactly when the actual work needed the most help. Here's the part that should genuinely unsettle you. This isn't a slow, deliberate judgment you could catch yourself making if you just tried harder. In 2006, Princeton researchers Janine Willis and Alexander Todorov showed people unfamiliar faces for 1/10 of a second, barely enough time to register that a face was even there, and asked them to rate how trustworthy each one looked. Those instant, 100-millisecond judgments lined up closely with the ratings people gave when they were allowed to stare at the same face for as long as they wanted. Giving people more time to look didn't make the judgment fairer or more careful. It mostly just made them more confident in the snap decision they'd already made in 1/10 of a second. From an evolutionary angle, this isn't really a design flaw. It's a leftover survival tool that used to work reasonably well. For most of human history, you didn't get a background check before deciding whether to trust the stranger walking into your camp. You got a face, a few seconds, and a decision that actually mattered, friend or threat. Symmetrical, healthy-looking features were also, historically, a rough signal of good genes and freedom from disease and parasites, not a perfect signal, but better than nothing in a world with no other information on offer. So the brain built a shortcut, attractive enough, probably safe, probably worth trusting. Fast, automatic, and for most of human history, there wasn't a better option available. The problem is that shortcut never got updated for a world where a face can be lit, angled, filtered, and edited before you ever see it. Economists Daniel Hamermesh and Jeff Biddle found that above-average-looking workers earn somewhere around 10 to 15% more over their careers than below-average-looking workers doing comparable work, a gap researchers have literally nicknamed the beauty premium, alongside a matching plainness penalty on the other end. It shows up in hiring decisions, in performance reviews, in loan approvals, even in courtroom sentencing, where more conventionally attractive defendants have been shown to receive measurably lighter outcomes for comparable offenses. None of that is about who's actually more competent, honest, or hardworking. It's the same 100-millisecond face read from the Stone Age, still running quietly in the background, now deciding who gets the callback, the promotion, the benefit of the doubt, based on nothing but bone structure and good lighting. It even shows up somewhere you'd hope pure reason would win out, the voting booth. Researcher Alexander Todorov and colleagues showed people the faces of real U.S. Senate candidates for about 1 second, not long enough to recognize either candidate, just long enough to form a gut impression of how competent each face looked. Those 1-second competence guesses correctly predicted the winner in close to 7 out of 10 Senate races studied, with no policy, no speech, no debate performance involved. Just a face and a second. So if a doctored photo can move a grade, a jury, or a Senate race this easily, imagine what it does to two strangers on a dating app who have nothing else to go on. And today the input to that ancient shortcut is easier to fake than it's ever been. A LinkedIn headshot, a curated dating profile, a beauty filter smoothing skin and widening eyes before a single word gets read. Every one of them is quietly pulling the same 1920s army officer lever, just with better lighting. Knowing about the halo effect doesn't switch it off. That's the uncomfortable part. Even psychologists who've spent entire careers studying this bias in other people still catch it running in themselves, in real time, on people they've just met. But there's something worth sitting with here. The next time a face gives you an instant, confident feeling about who someone is, kind, competent, trustworthy, remember that feeling formed in about 1/10 of a second. Using a shortcut built for a world that no longer exists. It might happen to be right. It is not, on its own, evidence of anything at all. Subscribe for more Mindwise.